Hi everyone and welcome to today's Guest Talks webinar, Empowering EdTech, Real AI Strategies Transforming Schools. We're thrilled to have you all with us to join us on this discussion. We're especially excited to have this session sponsored by Turnitin, a global leader in academic integrity and learning solutions. For over 25 years, Turnitin has been at the forefront of educational innovation, partnering with institutions worldwide to promote honesty and enhance learning outcomes through their comprehensive suite of tools and services. Just going to add a pop-up to all of your screens now. So if you take a look at this, and you can download Turnitin's latest global research report, it presents a view of the impact of AI in education with insights from 3,500 secondary and higher education participants across the US, UK and Ireland, Australia and New Zealand, Mexico and India. You'll also be able to access this at the end. I'll put a pop-up in the outro as well. So today's session, we will dive deep into practical AI implementations that are reshaping education. We're going to explore real-world examples and actionable strategies that you can apply in your own educational setting. With AI rapidly evolving, this is a crucial conversation that you don't want to miss. And just a quick note to mention that we have GESS Saudi Arabia coming up in less than 2 weeks now. So if you haven't registered yet, then I strongly encourage you to do so now with the pop-up on your screen. The event will hold essential discussions on the future of educational technology. And as always, we welcome your engagement. So please feel free to use the Q&A tab. It's just be on the side of your screen, and send any questions through during the session. And our panel will aim to address as many as they can. So now let's begin this exciting exploration of AI in education. So I'm pleased to hand over to today's moderator, who's going to guide us through this conversation. So over to you, Alex.
Wonderful. Thank you ever so much for that, Millie. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning to those of you who are joining us for today's exciting webinar. We have wonderful, wonderful people here to guide us, to talk to us, to take us through their real world experiences. And in the next hour, be able to give you something that you can walk away with and be able to use in your lessons for tomorrow, and just to be inspired, to be captivated, to be motivated as we move through this exciting time in education. Now, as was said, in terms of questions, there is the side panel. Please use it. If you find that we're going through something and you've got a question, maybe you want to add something, please add it in. We'll come to it either through the conversation or maybe as we get to the end when we host our Q&A. But one thing I've realized is you are not here to listen to me speak today. You are here to listen to these wonderful guests. And I don't want to take that thunder away from them. So I'm going to ask them each individually to introduce themselves to you. And then we are going to start this web. So Frank, I'm going to go with you, please, first. Please introduce yourself to our audience today.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me. I've been working in Saudi Arabia for the past 5 years, and I help institutions and enterprises into the educational and training sector, essentially, with emerging technologies, which is both extended reality and artificial intelligence.
Wonderful. Thank you, Frank. Linda.
Hi, Alex. Hello, everyone. I'm a digital learning lead in Dubai. I've been in Dubai for the past 7 years, in the Middle East for the past 10. So as a science teacher, as digital learning lead, I've definitely seen EdTech grow and AI blossom. I was fortunate to work with Ty for a couple of years ago. So that definitely gave a unique insight into what's happening.
Wonderful. Thank you. Nice to see you. Dare.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dari, and I'm the digital education lead for the University of Birmingham Dubai campus. And I'm also the advisory board, one of the advisory board members for BETS Global, where we are working together to shape the future of education. And I'm happy to be part of this session today.
Thank you, Dari. Nice to see you. Nice to have you here. Let's see what we get. Zeenath, Dr. Zeenath, welcome. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Jess. It's great to be in this panel. My name is Zeenath. I'm the Associate Professor for Responsible Information Systems at University of Wollongong in Dubai. But I also have a different hat where I'm the founding president for the Center for Academic Integrity in UAE, which is a national level network where we're looking at academic integrity. And of course, because AI became AI the way it did in education, we launched an AI ethics lab last year. So we are doing a lot in that sense, especially targeted at K-12.
Wonderful. Lovely to have you here. And last, but by no means least, Ty.
Good evening, afternoon, morning to everyone. My name is Ty Cushell. I'm the head of digital education and innovation for Ali Asset Private School. Been in the Middle East for roughly over a decade, and just a leading voice in AI and education here in the Middle East. So we're excited to be connected to all of these people on this panel today.
Amazing. Amazing. And we have some insightful conversations and some interesting questions and outputs for us over these next 55 minutes. So without further ado, I'm going to jump straight into this. And this first round of questions is more to do with the current landscape and the impact that the actions are having on education and the fields that we work in. So Frank, I want to start with you. Now, you have run many different pilots, and thinking about those, I'm interested in the learning outcomes that you found from this, and specifically as well, the things that have been measurably boosted by the XR. And obviously from school side of things, there's KPIs that come into it. What have you found as being these key performance indicators that prove the impact it's having?
Yeah, well, that's a really good question, because it kind of depends on the typology of the school and in which maturity they are, right? Because there are some schools that are already kind of embracing these kind of new emerging technologies. Others are the beginning of the journey, right? So it kind of really depends on the type of the school, and also the type of how can I say, age of the students. But overall, the key very benefits that you get by using extended reality and artificial intelligence, it's all around student engagement and motivation. So when students are playing, playing, kind of studying, with these using this new technology, the engagement is far more higher than any other technology, But aside of the engagement, then you got the retention of the content, because the students can remember more and can recall more knowledge by experience some of the topics using this technology, because you are immersed in that specific topic. And primarily, when you then need to improve also the comprehensions of abstract content, right? Or topics, things like physics or other type of subjects. And then in some other benefits are around reducing anxiety. There are some students that maybe they're not, they got a little bit more anxious on some specific topic because maybe it's not their key topic, and this technology helps reduce the anxiety when consume those content. But in terms of KPI that we monitor, again, it depends, but primarily it's about academic performance, because thanks to these new technologies, the test score and the exams, we have seen that increase by an average from 15 to 30% comparing to traditional methods. And also, as I mentioned before, the retention metrics are far higher, because they can they improve by even 50% the retention of the content. So they remember that specific topic, that specific content, even after 4, 6, 8 weeks when the class happen, on this matter. And then overall, as we said, the engagement score, it improves from 20-40%. That is a kind of a data that comes from teachers analyzing, watching the students. The engagement improve from 20 to 40%. But one thing that maybe I want to clarify before we deep dive into the discussion here is that when we talk about extended reality, it's not only virtual reality. Okay, so it's not having a device in front of your face. In reality, it's also augmented reality. So you augment the digital content among your physical space, maybe using a tablet. Not necessarily you needed to have a device that you needed to wear it. So, and then when you apply this into improve all these experiences using agentic AI, which is, AI agents, the whole thing's kind of change. It's a game changer. And but I'm sure that some of the people here will talk more about AI, and I'm happy also to deep dive into the AI topics.
That's wonderful. Thank you. I mean, yeah, it's glided to me in terms of the difference between what is XR, VR, augmented reality, sort of the thing about having it within the classroom, and you're talking then about impact of it. And Ty, I want to come to you now regarding that, because obviously taking on board new technologies, and in this case, also taking on board AI, what do you see as some of the biggest adoption gaps between the hype around AI and really the in the classroom reality? Are you with us, Ty?
Yeah, sorry, it was a slight lag. I was getting an unresolved lag. So, yeah, the biggest adoption gap literally is just because there has not been a specific mandate. There's nowhere until recently in the past 2 weeks or so that the UAE has said this is going to be mandatory. Students will be participating at a specific level. But the adoption rate and this adoption gap happens because you have your enthusiasts that, like pretty much everyone on this panel, that will say, yeah, I'll dive, head first into this and try some things out. And then you, of course, have the exact opposite spectrum with people that are saying, we don't know anything about this, so we will not use it, right? So until that, that gap begins to start closing with professional development, proper tools that are, used proprietarily for, education, is also being closed. ChatGPT, OpenAI, who, are the purveyors of most of the popular AI that's being used. They've opened up, Open AI Academy, where these tools then start belonging to education as opposed to just being in the outside industry, and then we're just using them to adapt to our, context, right? So I think as that begins to start happening, professional developments and train the trainer models then start, taking shape and form, and then they're actually being executables specific for, teachers and specific subjects and specific, year groups and curriculum, right? So, I do a lot of things with multiple schools, but then, they're like, okay, I want to see something specific for British curriculum of this age group or American curriculum for this age group. As those tools start being developed around those specific, specificities, then we'll get a smaller adoption gap, and it'll be, normalized, and it'll be something that every school will automatically participate in without even knowing they're doing that.
I think wonderful. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting future that we move through. And obviously what we've got there is we've got sense of AI on one side, we've got augmented reality on another side of it. But within that, Linda, I want to come to you now, because I want to know, is there anything in between that? And I want to draw on your experience and really ask, is there like a single digital tool that has turned the concept of truly customized learning into everyday classroom practice?
I just did that classic rookie error there, but okay.
No one noticed. No one noticed. It's fine.
So I have actually thought quite long and hard about this, and I was tempted to say, and I don't want to name drop for the sake of name dropping, okay, So I was tempted to say a certain platform, but I thought, well, actually, no, there isn't one. But that's the whole point of having a digital ecosystem. Like it's how we've made, or how I've made digital ecosystems or helped contribute towards digital ecosystems in successive schools, is because even if the school doesn't rave that they are customized, and there's always some element of personalization, customization, scaffolding within the school, and the idea that through hardware and through software, every teacher in their classroom should have a little ecosystem that's personalized to them. And that's why I started using the term digital ecosystem. I know Philippa also talks very much about digital ecosystem. I'm going on my science side, which is why I've always said it. In answer to your question, although AI has supercharged the personalization, but I use that loosely, but maybe that's another conversation, of learning, like essentially the teacher's choice and the student's choice on what they use to learn inside every classroom should be slightly different by every stage and by every age, and we celebrate that in this particular school, and I have guided people to celebrate that in their schools as well. There shouldn't be one size fits all, because there isn't a one size fits all teacher.
Great answer. Lovely answer. Yeah, I think that's a really good one to really draw upon for people listening as well, in that you've got to find the thing that fits best for you and the teachers, the staff, the students within your ecosystem, as it were. And talking of ecosystems, obviously we talk a lot then about, we're focusing really on secondary, maybe a little bit on primary, but Dari, I want to come to you then regarding this, because as someone who works within the university side, like, you must come across some real difficult barriers trying to get academics to swap traditional lectures to actually more tech-enhanced pedagogy. Like, how are you going about changing this and lowering it so that they do approach these new strategies?
Yeah, with all due respect to my academic colleagues, and I can see Dr. Maynard smiling already. Well, I think the major barrier is around mindsets, and then how we want to change the mindsets, how we trying to challenge the status quo, and trying to convince colleagues that it's no longer acceptable to use yesterday's method to teach today's students whilst we are preparing them for the future. It's not going to work like that. And it's high time we start adopting digital tools and ensuring that we integrate it properly and ethically in the pedagogical practices. And another thing that I realized is that has actually worked practically for us here at the university is that when I tried to let colleagues know that there are ways to do this, and I realized that people want hands-on session. They don't want you to talk at them. They don't want you to send them some information and all of that. Show me how it works. People say, I've been lecturing for the past 30 years, 20 years, and I'm knowing it and it's fine and it's working for me. You need to be able to tell me what I need to do differently and what am I going to achieve. And it's very important for us to show them rather than just telling them. And one thing we've done here that has been successful is that we've done a roadshow whereby we've taken AI session to different colleges, to different schools. And then we've identified super users in that school to say that, can you show us how you've been using it contextually? And then they've been able to say that. They've been able to showcase it in the classroom and say, this is how I use it. And that way we've been able to record, an excellent uptake and an excellent adoption of these digital tools, because people were able to see how their own peers are actually using it. And it has really, really worked. And I would really recommend such aspect because, for example, we have STEM and non-STEM subjects, and the way they use it differs as well. And the context differs as well. So it is very, very important that we contextualize these digital tools. All right, thank you.
Yeah, I think that's a really good piece you've offered there about contextualizing them. because every school is, and going back to what Linda said, every school has a different ecosystem, a different context, different classrooms, different age groups, tying into everything we've unpacked so far. And which leads me then to Dr. Zenith, the question there for you. We're listening to all this about all these different digital tools. There's almost a proliferation of these digital tools now. I'm curious from your side, what new integrity risks are you seeing that didn't exist, I'm going to say 5 years ago, but the reality is that didn't even exist 12 months ago, a year ago? What are the things that are popping up for you?
Thank you so much, Alex. And I think such a fascinating question for me. And I would like to start it off by first saying it hasn't been anything drastically new. And it's going to sound surprising when I say that. But if you really think about academic integrity as a sector, the word plagiarism comes from plagiarize, which is an English form of a Greek word from the 18th century. So these are problems that academics have been actually working through for generations. But having said that, I think the things that have really had us concerned and still concerns us are not plagiarism, and it's not contract cheating, but a whole new form of misconduct, which European Network for Academic Integrity has termed as UCG, or unauthorized content generation. This in itself is a problem when students are, let's say, using ChatGPT or similar tools to generate entire assignments without really having any kind of critical thinking or learning happening. We've seen an uptake of AI-assisted impersonation a lot. Deepfakes are everywhere. We've got voice cloning that happens in presentations and even during online exams that people do. One of the interesting ones has been prompt engineering cheating, where we have also these humanizers that students can use to kind of put their text, the AI text in, to make it look more human. But now they can actually engineer prompts to make the same text within ChatGPT also feel human. And what's also really interesting, and this is something students have shared with me through the center, is shared prompt marketplaces, where students are coming up with fantastic prompts and then they're selling it to each other. All you have to do is just go to Reddit and just type prompt marketplace, and you'll see most of the conversation is actually dominated by students and not by us. So these are just some of the things that weren't heard of, even like you said, 12 months ago. But on the basic of all of this is integrity values that we are always discussing, which is missing in the conversation. And which is why even when COVID happened and we suddenly went online, we did see that institutions that did have a culture of integrity on campus were faring a lot better, although they were not being able to have those eye contacts with students and develop those personal relationship with students, that they were still able to maintain those integrity values across devices. Alex.
Thank you. I mean, I want to stick with you on this one because I think I've just written down plagiarism, super old. Like, that's my takeaway from that, because it's one of those things that I think for as long as AI has been around from an educational perspective, we know it's been here for a long, long time, way before ChatGPT came out. And obviously that's what's really blown it up into the education atmosphere. But how, Dr. how do we go about getting institutions then to pivot away from plagiarizing policy, or plagiarizing policing, because we're seeing a lot of it? Is there any sort of proactive culture or any tech that can help institutions probably be more proactive with it, be less kind of, top heavy on trying to really punish students that they think, and I'm going to use that word, think, are plagiarizing?
Again, yes. And such an important conversation to have, right? Because I think as teachers, we're already so overwhelmed, especially K-12 teachers are so overwhelmed with finishing the syllabus in very strict timelines that they have, that telling them to go over and beyond to think about anything else will feel like extra workload, admin workload. So a lot of the times teachers come from a place of policing, right? But what we have seen over and over again is what really works is that holistic approach to developing a culture of integrity across campuses. And that isn't just on the shoulders of teachers. It's from the management. So if you have an education board, academic integrity can't be an afterthought. It needs to be an agenda item in your board meetings so that you can actually discuss it. right? So it starts from there, and then it kind of trickles down all the way to the grassroots level. Embedding these values early. There's a very classic example that I always use on Dueling Dilemma, where my 6-year-old, when she was 6 years old, she was asked to make a diorama, desert diorama. Lo and behold, I obviously made it for her. So when she went for her show and tell, she stood up in front of her whole class with the model and said, "My model." And I use this example because I think it's a very powerful one that really tells you, we don't know what the 6-year-old really learned about dioramas, but for sure we just taught them that they can take credit for work done for them by somebody else, which is the definition of contract cheating. Right? So it's very important that we start embedding these values early. And a lot of technology, for instance, Turnitin itself is fantastic to use as an educative tool. We've done that a lot in our classrooms, in trainings that we've done with teachers and students, where we are allowing them to upload and we're allowing them to see what is getting highlighted and having that discussion of why is that a problem instead of just saying it's a problem. So then you get to have those conversations about the transparency and the acknowledgement and citations. Other than that, things like student co-creation really helps with this holistic approach. Students want to have their voices heard. They need to be a part of the policies that we develop. So when we work on policies, for instance, we've just come up with a green paper. We're working now on a white paper. We use Trello, we use Miro, we use Padlets, or something even as simple as MS Teams to get students to come on board, have a read through the policies and give us their take on it. And finally, I think learning analytics dashboards are just such game changers. They help you with early warning systems. They can identify disengagement from students, common precursor to a misconduct, and again, allows you to take it back to those values. Alex.
Yeah. That's a great answer. Thank you. And talking and kind of keeping the focus in there, Ty, I want to come to you with this one because we're really, and someone's asked this in the questions as well in the Q&A about classroom practice of this. And we've had this conversation before, and I think we see it very similarly in terms of there's AI for teaching and then there's AI for learning in terms of where our students use this. And I'm hoping that you can give us sort of a story from a classroom experience that you've had where you can pick any AI tool. You could give us a few different AI tools if you wanted, but where they were used to really flip a teaching method. And then really about this is we're also focusing on impact because we want to know something about the type of methods, the innovation we're using that's going to stick, that's going to have the impact. Like within that story, what was the impact of the AI? How did it move the needle forward for those students learning? You need to unmute yourself, Ty.
Yeah. You're absolutely right, Alex. We had this conversation on your podcast, The International Classroom. So yes, the main place, and even the person in the is saying, like, where do you start? In educational technology, we have a thing that's called the summer model. Now, all of these people on this panel probably know this model because it's the model that we use for adoption for technology in our classroom, right? Substitution, augmentation, modification, and redefinition, right? It's like having the Bloom's taxonomy or regular pedagogy. So in our world of ed technology, we use what's called the SUM model. It's a very basic model, right? So using artificial intelligence, just like how we do with any technology in the classroom, our ultimate goal is to reach the redefinition of a task and using technology in a way that you would not be able to produce something if you were not using that technology. And that's how I always approach artificial intelligence in the classroom. I can just use ChatGPT to Google something and research. That's the same thing as actually just Googling something, or actually, like back in my day, I had to go to a library and open an encyclopedia and find the letter that matched the word that I was looking for, to then find out that plagiarism is a Latin word that came from, like I had to do that in a specific place, right? So that's just substitution. If I literally use ChatGPT to say, where do I find the information about the word plagiarism and its etymology, right? So that's just substitution. I'm just using it as something else. I can use multiple things to do that. And that's very bottom level, usage of a tool, right? But we want to push students up all the way to redefinition. Much like in Bloom's taxonomy, I want to get a student all the way to creation. We know that that's the highest level of learning, right? So I had some students last term. They were using chatbots to create chatbots for specific people in history, right? And so we had students that actually, this was in January because we're American curriculum school, so they kind of follow the patterns of, it's being taught in America. So it was Martin Luther King Day in January, right? So they were studying Martin Luther King in social studies and, the contributions that he made, of course, to civil rights in America and all of these things. So I had some students, or some advanced computer science students, that actually ended up creating a chatbot that was based on the realities and the teaching and the written works of Martin Luther King, so that they could then interact with this chatbot King, how he would approach things in our modern time, right? So how would you deal with God, or the war with Ukraine and Russia? Like, what would his standpoint be? And so this is redesigning and redefinition of a task. Instead of just doing research and speculating Martin Luther King and how he responded. Unfortunately, he's no longer with us, so I cannot ask him. But with this task and this ability, and now this tool that they had, that they can build a chatbot, now they can interact if you are speaking to Dr. Martin Luther King, right? And so that is something that would not be able to have been done if I did not have the artificial intelligence tool, right? So just starting with those simple things of finding out what else would a student be able to do if they did not have this tool, and then redefining that.
So I just want to pause you on that point because it's a great answer, but I want to transition it because I'm starting to think aloud now, and I'm bringing Frank into the equation for this, because you're starting to think of this tool, and for those of us, you might use DID or other platforms like this that allow you to make sort of individual images or models or moving components. And I'm thinking then about what I could take from Ty's example of the task, this chatbot, and how I might stick it into an augmented reality, how I might then bring this into even a virtual reality so I could see him moving. Frank, if I wanted to go about doing that, if I want to bring in and scale something like this through an XR or VR or augmented reality, what would be your first recommendation to me in terms of bringing it into a classroom to do something like this? And how do I go about then scaling that through a school?
Sure. I mean, clearly the two technologies are converging anyway, because now, what Ty just said, that model, now we can have that model in a hologram version or in a kind of augmented version in any device, essentially. So you're not anymore chatting with that model. You're actually now talking to that model. And again, talking visually, it's the representation. It's like to have a human being in front. So again, more the way to interact with these things is also changing drastically, but more importantly, it has got a really key effect on the students as well. Because one way is to just have a chat, one-to-one. Another way, actually having a proper conversation with an augmented hologram of that person, in your room, in your classroom, in your living room, essentially. Now you can do that quite easily, as Itai said. And we got plenty of technology that we have deployed in universities and schools in Saudi Arabia. And going back to your question, once you do the pilot, the proof of concept, how are you going to scale this? I can summarize in 3 different steps. the first step is that you need to make sure that you got the right infrastructure, right? And when I talk about infrastructure, I don't mean just simply connectivity. I mean everything that is around infrastructure, including security as well as policies, as we were talking before. So the whole infrastructure of using these new technologies at a 360 degree, from a technical point of view and from an ethical point of view. The second thing is, I'm afraid, teachers are vital here, right? So students embrace technology far more faster than anyone else, right? Teachers less, right? We know that. So we needed to not only teach to teachers this technology, but we needed to embrace, we needed to have them on board. Because one of the things that is happening is that, the topic about AI is replacing some jobs. I'm not saying that it will replace teachers, but definitely will augment teachers. So basically, we're going to have, potentially in the near future, we're going to have 2 teachers in every classroom, one human and one not. So, and that not human teacher can be personalized by every single individual, and will take that every single individual at home. So essentially, you will have your personalized teacher companion every time that you need it. So again, the second thing, it's important that also the teachers embrace this. And one of the key fundamental things is that I know that there isn't one single app or supplier that fulfill about everything. But one thing that we need to pay attention is to select the right supplier that will provide you long-lasting relationship, right? So you need an evergreen supplier, because what you need today, that supplier has got all the tick in the box, you may need something else not far away, just in a quarter time. You may need something else. If the supplier is not so agile, is not so innovation driven, then you're back square number one, where you have to do again another FAP, another 6 months, pim pum pam, and you are going to be late again. So 3 things: infrastructure, teachers on board with open mind, and third is the right suppliers.
And that brings me nicely on to the question I have for you, Linda, because I kind of think we're still in the honeymoon phase of a lot of these technologies, at least the new ones. But, ed technologies has been around for a long time, and you've, worked with this and encapsulated and been very, very successful with implementing these across the UAE. But how do you go about then vetting and ensuring that the shiny new app or the shiny new toy or tool is actually having an amplifying the student-centered model rather than distracting them from what they're there to do?
Mm-hmm. I'm going to go back to what I said before about having a digital ecosystem and having everyone knowing what they have to hand, whether they're new teachers or whether they're veteran teachers. And we start off with the vetting, because that's so tightly bound to the vetting process, that we should be doing that every year to introduce teachers into the school year. This is your ecosystem, and then going through the school year and coming out the other side, giving an audit of, is this suitable for you and what are you getting out of it? Now, the suitability and what are you getting out of it is really important to your question, because if we then find a gap, then we go for something, or if someone suggests something at that point, we can then go for it. Because obviously, of course, the shiny new system or the system that you have, from your other school, for instance, because of the transient nature of schools, in any international school, you're going to get teachers coming in just kind of going, oh my God, but this platform is amazing, but I've never seen but I've never used Microsoft before. I've always used Google, for instance, or I've never used ChatGPT before. I've always used Claude, and then kind of have this tribalism. So it's not so much. So it's kind of trying to educate all stakeholders from leadership downwards that this is what we have at the moment. This is why we're using it. Does it say what it says on the tin? okay, and where are the gaps? Okay, so that's why I mentioned digital audit first, before even having a conversation about, well, yes, you found, let's stick with ChatGPT so we don't offend any of the vendors. Okay, you found ChatGPT. Wow, okay, we don't have an AI system in our school yet. What can it do? And at that point, whoever has said to us, we're using it, or we've used it in our old school, or I found it because it benefits our lesson planning or our our student outcomes. We then have a small trial for it. Now I'm going to go on to a real life scenario, okay? And we did this a while ago, actually. So the one that I'm actually going to give you as an example, we did a while ago. And then I'm going to give you an example of one that we did fairly recently, okay? So the one that we did a while ago was in COVID, okay? So that was a pretty stressful time for everyone, and everything was coming at us all at once kind of thing. So we needed to make sure that this trial was really quick, and also that it got data that we could fall back on. So the idea that if you're saying it's going to improve student outcomes, and in some way, shape or form, let's be honest here, every PedTech platform should be improving student outcomes, whether it's creativity or whether it's whether it's that you want the science results to go up, or you want to gap fill a math curriculum because you can't do maths in a certain way and you've got a bit of a gap. So the way that we did this was we had a certain year group using the technology, and we had a certain because it was only a certain year group, because it was a small trial, the other year groups weren't using it, and we collected that data over the space of a couple of weeks, when we taught them a mini unit, and we taught another year group another mini unit that we didn't use this technology for, and we compared the results. We compared the particular result. It was an AI. I'm going to say it's an AI-driven platform that's been around for a while, okay, and because of that, okay, we then, without you're trying to guess which one it is, because of that, and because we saw the value added to the student scores, we then decided to roll it out in a subject, and then roll that subject once the platform was within that subject, because we tried it out with year 8 first. That year 8 cohort, pretty much because everyone does that subject, that year 8 cohort knew how to use it. It was then a case of then going back and training the teachers more on it, and then rolling it out per year group, and it went down to year 4. So that's how we rolled out a huge whole school platform in quite a stressful situation in the middle of a year, but we did it essentially because we could see the value.
Yeah, and I think sorry to interrupt you there. I'm kind of wanting to move this on as well because I'm mindful of time. What you've picked out there is something really key about analytics and impact. And I think when we're talking about innovation that sticks, I want to transition to Dari now and ask him about this, just because learning analytics and analytics as a whole is kind of also a big thing from primary all the way through to post 18. So we're talking about universities and education. And I'm wondering, from everything you've heard and from your own experience, what have you found that is a metric basically that's persuasive when you pitch innovation to faculty members at university level?
Yeah, I think as a data enthusiast myself, I believe that we rarely can, have any impact without data. We can't change anything if we don't have the data to back it up. And I'll go back to what Linda mentioned about the digital ecosystem. We have different digital tools within the university digital ecosystems. And one thing is common about all of these digital tools, which is the engagement analytics. If students are not engaging, then we can't have that impact. So I believe that engagement analytics is top on the list for me. And this is what I always use. For example, we always talk about supporting students, right? Like how we want to support students, how we want to ensure that they achieve good, excellent graduate outcomes and all of that. But it is very, very important that we are able to support them at the right time in a timely manner. And the only way we can do this is, and I noticed that from research, I have realized that it's usually happen at the very, very late time, where it's already late, and then you can already see that the student have probably failed a particular course and all of that. But with engagement analytics, you are able to then know students that are actually at risk. You're able to identify at-risk students, and then you're able to provide the necessary support for the students, either by referring them to their personal academic tutoring session or all of that. And that's why I'm also happy that Linda mentioned about that everything we're doing, it's about student-centric, isn't it? It's about ensuring that the outcome is excellent. They have an excellent outcome within their teaching and learning experience. And the only way we can do that is gathering this, this data from all maybe it's learning management system, AI tools, whatever tools they're engaging in, and trying to see exactly critically how are they engaging, who is engaging and who is not, and then how we can provide a tailored support for them.
Wonderful answer. That is, and it ties both of what Linda and Dari saying together. I think it builds on each other. So really appreciate you elaborating on the analytics and the impact and the ways in which we can do this. I'm very much mindful of time. We want to make sure we get our Q&A at the end. So I want us to move on to sort of the future vision and actionable moves then. So the takeaways that people can have and start to implement with this. And Linda, I want to come back to you just to continue on with this momentum of the question. We're going to use the word personalized. I'm not a massive fan of personalized learning. I prefer customized, but I want to ask you about personalized learning and actually more like personalized learning 2.0, the next step. What can this?
Can you repeat the question, Alex? Because I think we lost a few words.
It's mine. My apologies. I think my internet dropped off. My question was, what tech trend is going to matter the most as we move forward, and what can teachers be doing this term to get ready for it?
I'm going to go back to what Dr. Zenith was talking about and prompt engineering, because the more the teachers, let's say this very generally, okay, the more the teachers run away from, and the more the leaders run away from the fact that AI is in our schools, and it is in our schools. It doesn't matter whether you have an AI policy or not. It doesn't matter which country you're in. It is in our schools. It's going to be spearheaded by your students, and being prompt literate, being AI literate for our teachers is, I think, the only way that we can get not even ahead of it. Okay, I don't think we can, but that's lovely because we're all learning together, kind of thing. What we can do is keep them safe, though, and I think that's really important too. Because I was looking very recently, and when I say recently, I mean today, at what's happening in the US at the moment and what's happening with this new AI in education. Like, apparently there's a law that's going through Senate, and it's going to affect, the thing is, whatever happens in America with AI is going to happen globally, okay? Because it's the big companies, and these big companies are going to be involved in like creating platforms, and those platforms are in the UAE. So whatever they're using in America to train the AI systems, or to push into education, and what that means for, say, for instance, lesson planning, and not lesson planning 100% with teachers, and lesson planning with AI. But then where is that AI data going? Sorry, this is a really long, this is a really long answer. But I think that, and that kind of thinking is going to be the next, the next worry for teachers, but also the only way that you can get ahead of that is by being AI literate for teachers, not just students.
And that's a whole other literacy. AI literacy is a whole nother thing in itself as well for another day. But Dr. Zenith, I'm going to come to you then with this, because obviously Linda mentioned it as well. What are you saying then is the type of policy we should create, or the training that must be in place before we start to bring in generative AI for things like assessment?
Yeah, I think it's very important that we start realizing, and I think one of the speakers mentioned this, that different disciplines and subjects will also have different requirements when it comes to using AI tools. So from that perspective, piloting AI tools in low-stake assessments before scaling it is something that must be done when we're thinking of proactive policies, including data governance training for staff in order to protect student data from third-party AI providers. I know a lot of teachers who are just uploading student assessments to get quick feedback, but what they're not realizing, this is student copyright, which is just being made available freely. Updating assessment policies themselves to make them transparent, citation of AI assistance. So actually defining authorship in this AI age. So who owns AI generated content, and how does a student actually cite the AI tool if they're going to be using it? How much are they allowed to use it? So having those conversations built into the policy. And I think Linda said it as well, and a few others, that we really need to have mandated faculty training on AI tools, and not just how to use the tool, but to really develop an understanding of what AI is and how these models really work. Because large portion of teachers still don't know how these tools really work themselves.
No. And I think with that as well comes cost. And I'm interested in this one because obviously we're focusing a lot on the cost of AI and what it costs us to bring into school. But Frank, from your side, again, we've talked about, I wrote down here about the technologies are converging. So kind of the physical component, the mechanical component with the AI and what we can generate. But which upcoming capability from your side, and it could be spatial AI agents, could be haptic feedback, what of those upcoming things do you think schools can plan their budgets for now?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, we talked a lot about students and teachers today, right? But we didn't talk a lot about management, because at the end of the day, we claim that teachers need to learn this technology, but as well as the management needs to budget, all of this. So it's important that also the management buy into these emerging technologies, because otherwise it's going to be frustrated, because otherwise you're going to be in the middle, right? Students using it, teachers trying to work out something, but in reality, they don't have the tools, the time and the budget to actually embrace it and do the work. So budgeting a specific technology is really hard to say, Alex, but definitely one key important thing that every school now needs to understand, every management of every school needs to understand, that budget for innovation, it needs to be increased a lot. It needs to be increased because AI is not a new technology. This is the fundamental key thing. AI is not a metaverse or blockchain or NFT, all the cool stuff that we hear every single year, right? AI, it's a revolution. It's not evolution. So it's like internet. I saw here one of the questions. Oh, we know all about the advantages of AI. What are the disadvantages? How are you going to answer that question? It's like saying, what are the advantages and disadvantages of internet? Gosh, I mean, it's so huge, the topic, So AI, it's a revolution. It's not a new technology. And every school, everyone needs to budget for this revolution. That is my message.
I think that's also a good way to be about it. It's don't bury your head in the sand and think, the free is going to be good enough. It's like, it's a starting point. But the reality is, as someone who pays to use 3 or 4 different AI tools, and I'm an AI floozy, I will move myself between all 4 different ones to get different outputs. It's like, that costs me money, and it's going to cost schools money. It's going to cost the businesses in the UAE money to be able to use it. We can't escape that reality. So, let's be mindful of this, because it can and does, as I think we're agreeing here, have an impact on our students' education. And bearing that in mind, I think a lot of what we're talking about, Dari, I'm going to come to you with this, about the types of assessments, the types of tasks, everything that we do, like in education, is about mindset. And I think that's about, do we use it? Do I not want to use it? It's about mindset. And I'm curious from your side, is is there a particular skill or a particular mindset that you think every educator should be deliberately practicing in 2025 to stay relevant with where we are?
Yeah. I mean, the conversation is massive, isn't it? Like you've just mentioned that AI is massive, and we're all just learning, isn't it? And no one can categorically say that they are an expert. It's a learning curve for everyone. Even though it's been here for a long time, it's a learning curve for everyone. However, one particular skill that will stand out in this ever-evolving education landscape is adaptability. You have to be adaptable. It is very, very important that you stay up to date. You know what's happening. You have the knowledge to be able to discern that this is the tool that works for me. And I don't necessarily have to jump on a tool because they've said this tool is working fine. And then all of that. So adaptability is very, very important in this age. And personally, for me, I think adaptability is it's no longer a soft skills when it comes to education. It's a survival skill. And we all have to be adaptable. And I'm not necessarily saying that you have to learn all of the tools and try to get in them, but you have to be able to determine which one. And I'll end the conversation with I'll end my statement with a quote from Professor Locke from University College London that says that you should learn quickly, and then you should utilize those tools slowly, which is learn very quickly, but act more slowly to be able to to work with these tools properly, efficiently, ethically, and all of that.
That's a wonderful quote to end that part with. So thank you. And Ty, I'm going to come to you last with this one, buddy, because obviously we talk a lot about starting the journey, and not every school is on parity. And there's been some of the conversation, the questions there is about equity, equality, the impact it can have for schools at different levels. And we've kind of addressed that a little bit, but we know that's there. Like, you talk a lot about getting started. You talk a lot about AI, and I'm not gonna give you your slogan out. You can do that yourself. But it's like, where'd you get started, buddy? If you are a school that is kind of constrained a little bit, to finish this conversation off for us today before you head on to our Q&A, it's like, where am I going to start the journey?
So I always, allow schools to first answer the question, where have you landed as a school? Have you decided, and this is a post-pandemial question, right? So after the pandemic, there's been a line drawn in the sand that either you're a Google school or a Microsoft school, right? So I kind of, start there. Are you a Google school? And I'm talking about like Google Enterprise, where like your emails and distro and everything connected to your school is coming from Gmail, or are you using Microsoft, right? So there are tools that are associated with those platforms that kind of do the same thing. At this point, it's Pepsi Coke, right? So if you are a Google school, then you should be utilizing Gemini, right? And if you are a Microsoft school, you should be utilizing Copilot. And again, just start. Anytime that I am, coming in as a consultant or speaking to schools, conducting trainings or PDs, you always got to start with the management first. You yourselves as management need to start using these generative AI tools in your workflow, right? And then with teachers, and then start finding ways as teachers adapt their classroom and their workflow for using generative AI, then find the entry points for your students. And then that also being for students, have a low, middle, and high entry point for students to use artificial intelligence. Of course, it's not always something that's going to be submitted and turned in for a mark. But again, going back to substitution, just find simple ways to substitute what you already do with using generative AI, and then build from there. And once you kind of have that scaffold of management first, teachers next, then students, Then we incorporate again other shareholders like students, parents, and the rest of the community with using those things. But those are always the starting point or entry point that I guide any school on, through that process.
Wonderful, thank you. And it is literally bang on 5 p.m. Sorry, that's UAE time. It's 2 o'clock somewhere in the world. I know that much. But first of all, I think if we can afford just a couple more minutes, but if you do have to go, please feel free to drop out with this. We've just got some questions, some Q&As, and we've tried our best. Thank you so much, so much to Frank, to Linda, to Dari, to Ty, to Dr. Zenith for also chipping in and answering this as we've gone through as well. I think that's allowed us to keep that momentum going for people. We've got sort of questions that have cropped up here, and I'm gonna throw this one out to the floor as well. Like, one of the questions was, and I tried to answer this as well. Where is it? I'm going to find it here. Do we think AI needs to be introduced to students in school? And if yes, is it not an extra pressure on their young minds? Linda, what do you think of this? Because you've worked through different age groups. What's your take on that?
So I've worked with 4-year-olds all the way up to 18-year-olds, and I've been fortunate enough to be in a school that is trying to embrace AI, not just with teachers but with students as well. Now this comes with a massive kind of thing of, is it safe? Okay, where is the data going? Like, is it going to be okay for them and their young minds, or is it going to be distracting? And are they going to use it as a shortcut and Internet 2.0 kind of thing? So first of all, we start off with, how old are they? Okay, because generally speaking, if they're under the age of 13, they should not be going anywhere near it. They can do AI literacy, okay, and they can understand what an AI system is, okay, but to actually use it themselves, big no-no for us. Okay, once they get into middle school, our younger middle school students, I know I've used it in design and in science very successfully for them to be making things like prototypes on AI, and then analyzing those prototypes, because otherwise it takes them forever. Like, you ask them to make like 4 advertisements on Canva, and it takes them like the whole year. Okay, but what I need them to do is do it in 2 weeks, because I need them to actually annotate it and make their final piece. Okay, so things like that, like it does, and they see the benefit of using it like that, as long as it's supervised. The big thing that I use for that, just so you know, is Canva. Okay, Canva for education, just so that you don't spend like thousands of pounds or something else. So the other thing that I use is Magic School, and I've used this for the older year groups. Okay, so I'm thinking like DP biology. Okay, and it's things like what you were talking about earlier, Ty, making like, them, like they get their biology content on Darwin, and I set it all up to, like, for Magic School to be like Lamarck, and they can have a conversation to solidify their understanding about Charles Darwin and the theory of evolution, and so on. Right? So I've done a couple of them like that, because sometimes I find it a little dry to learn about the scientists, fascinating as they are, but they find it a little dry. But yeah, like so that's what we've been looking at in terms of integrating. And I know that, like, just walking through the school, like I've seen like Magic School and Canva and stuff like on the board, so I know that other people are doing that as well within the school. We're also quite fortunate that we have an AI course for grade 9s and grade 10s that all grade 9s do and all grade 10s do, to get them more like immersed in the ethics of AI and how to prompt and how to do that kind of stuff. But more on that, I guess, another time, because we run out of time.
Yeah. Ethics is what I want to draw onto as well, because Dr. Zenith, there was a question in there about ethics, and is there frameworks, policies, global frameworks and policies that teachers could be looking at? Because we all have heard about the EU AI Act, but if we're not in the EU, where could we be going to find out things about ethical approaches and ethical uses of AI? I think, oh, sorry, you need to unmute yourself.
This time I did it. So as I mentioned in the chat, there are quite a few actually out there, and the most user-friendly one is the UNESCO's competency framework for teachers and students. If you look at it, they've even got ways that you can actually implement it in classrooms, each of those levels that they've talked about, and they're talking from in perspective of technology literacy, to knowledge deepening, to knowledge creation. So they're going step by step to how understand ICT, to including the AI in the curriculum, to the pedagogy, to the technology itself, and so on and so forth. So the framework that UNESCO's come up with is very user-friendly for teachers and students. So I would definitely recommend that teachers access that. It's a great place to start.
Thank you. And one of the questions on there was about the age of bringing AI into the classrooms, into students. So I'm going to ask sort of between the two people, Frank and Ty, because I also think it's a question then about the age and impact we have about bringing technology to students. So Frank, have you seen anything that, noticeable about the discrepancies in age and impact we have when we bring in virtual realities or different technologies into students' learning?
Yeah, pretty much. I had the same experience of Lyndon, the privilege to work with all such a broad range of students. And clearly there are limitations and different technologies that you can introduce to depending on the age of the people. So for example, virtual reality as such, wearing devices, it's not less than 13 years old, 12 type of thing, but before then you can use tablets to use maybe augmented reality type of thing, right? So again, there are a number of guidelines here and there. There isn't a general global law, if you wish, in these fields, but there are some things that generally lots of countries adopt and therefore apply into your school, into your university. Absolutely.
Cool, thank you. Ty, what about yourself? What have you seen in terms of ages of students using AI?
Yeah, so we have this perception, right, or this romanticized understanding of what AI is, and that then changes when we shift our perspective of what that is, of what you can teach students. Yes, I'm not going to give a first grader who is just learning phonics and sounds, chat GPT, but I am going to give them some kind of computational thinking. I'm going to give them algorithmic thinking and those kinds of things that's going to show pattern recognition that then is also going to help in literacy, which suffices for teaching AI, right? And again, hopefully we'll have this conversation again in a year's time when the UAE and these other places are actually rolling out this mandatory curriculum for AI and what that actually looks like, because we know even as a country they're saying from K all the way to 12. Well, what does that look like at teaching artificial intelligence in kindergarten, right? It's going to be there. But I think that it's just something physical, right? I'm teaching algorithmic thinking and, directional left and right and letters and sounds to, generate a specific idea, right? So I have seen it used at a very, very low elementary level, but you don't use it in the sense of creating something that is going to change the mind or the concept of a student, right? You're teaching different concepts or cross curricular things that then is going to allow educational tools and ed tech things to bring that alive. Just like Frank is saying, I've seen augmented reality in kindergarten where they visit a virtual zoo or go to the rainforest and see the types of animals, and then they're able to describe in their own writing what the animals were that they saw in the rainforest, right? So all of those things can fit into that piece of artificial intelligence. We just need to be more creative in what we're offering our students.
Wonderful. Well, ladies and gents, I am going to call it a day there. We could go on for this conversation, I'm sure, for probably another hour and be completely pulled from pillar to post from different platforms because everyone's got questions and curiosities about certain things. What I would recommend, though, and one of the things that has been of great value to me in my professional development is a professional learning network. And I would highly recommend to people on here, if you are not already connected with the people that you see on LinkedIn, and I would say that's probably one of the best social media platforms for educators for learning and actually being able to ask a question and get an answer back. without any form of negativity or derogatory or put down, a really safe space to learn. I would highly recommend following these individuals on LinkedIn, engaging with them, asking questions, because I know full well that they will happily come back to you and help and support. It is a fantastic platform. And I think that's one of the key ways that we keep the momentum in this conversation and keep helping each other advance along with this path. But first of all, from me, a massive thank you to GESS for allowing this to take place today. It's been an absolute pleasure listening to Frank, to Linda, to Dari, to Dr. Zenith, and to Ty share their expertise. And I hope you as an audience at home have enjoyed this and taken great value from it. So thank you for joining us today, and thank you to my collaborators, my guests, my speakers, my everything in this webinar. So thank you ever so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, guys. That was such an interesting session, and I can see that people have really enjoyed it and really engaged. We've got so many questions that have come through. So yeah, and a massive thank you to all of our speakers for your insights, and obviously to our listeners for tuning in. Another massive thank you goes out to our sponsor, Turnitin, whose commitment to innovation and academic integrity continues to shape the future of education. Their suite of solutions, from Gradescope to Turnitin Originality, exemplifies how technology can enhance teaching and learning experiences. So I'm just going to pop up again on all of your screens. As I mentioned earlier, you can download this. It's Turnitin's latest global research report. It presents a view of the impact of AI in education with insights from 3,500 secondary and higher education participants across the US, UK and Ireland, Australia and New Zealand, Mexico and India. And if you would like to continue the conversation or share your thoughts, then you can reach out to us at marketing@guesseducation.com. And another reminder that you don't want to miss GESS Saudi Arabia 2025, which is coming up in just less than 2 weeks. So now's the perfect time to secure your free registration if you just click the pop-up that's appearing on your screen now. Before you leave, we would greatly appreciate your feedback. So a brief survey is going to appear on your screen once the webinar's ended, and also a note to say that the session was recorded and it will be available on the GESS Education website and our YouTube channel very soon. So thank you all for taking part in today's webinar, and hopefully we will see you all in GESS Saudi Arabia. But take care and goodbye for now.
See you in a couple of weeks then. Bye-bye.
Yes, we'll see you then.
Bye-bye.